it's really great to me when industry gets involved, when it's not just us going and speaking to government or putting positions forward or in the media. I was excited just to be nominated. When I was nominated, I went, this is it. This is fantastic, let alone to make the finalist list and then actually win the award. I felt a lot of emotions going through that journey. If we have a win for our members, industry has a win. Everyone benefits from it. And I think the automotive industry, not just for women, it's a tough industry, right? Like, I've seen this industry break some very strong people in different ways, and not necessarily just females. Why is it that that's the go-to question about women in automotive? I know why it's there. I just don't know where we progress. That one day it's not, and it probably won't be in my time here.
Okay, Kellie, thanks very much for joining us on the Motoring Chronicles. I want to talk first about your role. So you're Deputy CEO, you're General Manager of Member Services for MTA Queensland. Now, MTA Queensland is a member organisation representing the automotive industry in Queensland. So I guess I kind of view it as a dual role. Encompasses advocacy work on behalf of members, but the member services bit. So that's something different, I'm guessing, to what a regular large business of similar size to MTAQ might have. It might not have a department of member services. So what is member services? What do members get from member services? What do you do there?
So really that's the hub of our support for members. So whether it's trying to save them a little bit of money through our corporate partnerships, giving them advice around legislation and how they comply and what it really means, because that's a really difficult space, especially for small business.
Yeah.
It's our marketing team on how we market us, but also our members, and try and give them a little bit of profile in industry. And I guess get that messaging through around why would consumers choose one of our members over anyone else in industry when they had work done on their car. But industrial relations as well. So I do head up that department. Now, look, that's probably the most used, most valued service, and I'm sure everyone hears that. And it really is. Like, they take a lot of calls through. It's an essential part of helping them navigate workplace and employment issues. And not everyone has a large HR team on staff, especially small business. So it really is that they can pick up the phone on any of those questions. And in saying that, a lot of larger businesses certainly use that service that do have HR departments as a spot check for calculations, or, just as a sounding board if they are having some sort of difficulty. But yeah, member services is very, very broad in what we do, but a lot of it is really just providing assistance and support to members, and that advocacy piece about representing them as well, whether that be to state government, whether it be in key stakeholder positions. We are essentially the voice for all of that in our advocacy piece.
Yeah. And I suppose member services it's never more important perhaps which unfortunately seems to happen beginning of every year. There's some sort of natural disaster happening somewhere in North Queensland. And I suppose that's where member services can come into its own a bit, right?
Absolutely. Because I think when you're trying to navigate that space and you're being impacted so devastatingly, as we've seen in North Queensland and continue to see, I think that they need a go-to source. They're not going to go onto every website that offers assistance and try and find out what's available to them as far as relief goes. So we say, look, we just want to be your one-stop shop. We'll keep it updated. We'll make sure it's current so you know what you can access across the board, what's available to you, and more importantly, how can we help?
Yeah. Now, the other part of your role, the deputy CEO part, that's I guess most people would understand that you partner with Rod, who's the CEO, in speaking on behalf of industry to government and liaising with corporate partners and that sort of. Is that what that that role's all about?
Yep, absolutely. And probably it broadened the scope of my role here because I wasn't really across what we did with training or the skills agenda.
Right.
So the deputy CEO role, because it spans across the group, I've had a lot more close work with training, and it's been a bit of an eye-opener. I was obviously here for a long time, but just in the member services side. So once I moved into that deputy CEO across the group, it really built out my knowledge in that skills space as well, which made it exciting again as well for me.
Yeah, I guess sometimes people don't appreciate that perhaps MTA Queensland as a member association, actually it also has this training arm, right? The Institute, which is, it's a big RTO.
Definitely. One of the largest private training provider, or the largest private training provider, but also industry owned, which is what makes it different. Not just workplace delivery, but that industry owned piece is really important as well.
Yeah. Okay. So back to the association. Now, I understand that there's been the membership growth for MTA Queensland's been really, really solid in the last year or two. Is there a reason for that, do you think? And can you put a reason to that?
A couple. We've built some really strong partnerships, so we engage with more people than ever, and Capricorn's just one example of that. But I think as well from our member benefits, we've really built those out a lot more. So I say we've never had so much on offer for a prospective member to be part of, whether it be cost savings from their bottom line, whether it be, legislative pieces that we're working on for their business, whether it be our industry initiatives team, which has been another massive benefit for us in membership. And I think that has impacted growth as well when people see that we're actually out engaging with young people and we're trying to encourage people into this industry, and it's been a little bit difficult. I think that a lot more people want to come on that journey. That's really important to them. We've got a massive skill shortage in this industry, and everyone's fighting for a piece of that youth market to say, we want you to come over here and try automotive, or we want you to try construction, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So I think the industry initiatives piece has been really important to us, whether it's, the Schools to Work program about encouraging young people, or whether it's supporting some of our apprentices who are already in apprenticeships.
Right. So MTAQ encompasses a huge amount of a very broad range of offerings. So why is it important that a business, small or large, automotive business in Queensland look to join an association like MTAQ? What is it? All of those things that you've mentioned are vital to a small business just getting traction, or to a business, to keep going, to be successful?
It's a great question. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of complacency in industry around associations and membership. But what I say is, when we represent to government, for example, to try and remove unintended consequences, to say that's fine for you to make that change, but this is what it really means to industry and the flow-on effect. If everyone's complacent about membership and we're not here, I don't know who fulfills that role. So I guess they're complacent because if we have a win for our members, industry has a win. Everyone benefits from it. Yeah. It's not like only your members get the benefit. So I do understand, but I always wonder what happens if you don't have an industry body who are looking after the industry's best interests. But it is for all the other reasons. It's for the workplace relations. We're certainly seeing members save a fair bit of money through our corporate partners. We just had another one recently with our FPOS around that $3,500 a year mark. For a small to medium business, it's quite substantial. And the energy offer is pretty popular as well at the moment. So
what's that, the energy offer?
So the energy offer is an energy review, so all your electricity, solar, whatever it might be. They do a full review. We talk about membership in, I guess, 3 different levels. We say there's the advocacy piece that takes a long time to have a win. But then we say there's cost savings to your bottom line through our corporate partners, or potential cost savings. And then there's the real support piece, the wraparound piece, like workplace relations, like, how does the business manage its Google reviews, or all different questions around marketing. So it's kind of in those 3 pieces, but advocacy is definitely key for us.
I mean, it sounds like a clear and obvious investment that any business ought to make, and without prompting you to tell me what the cost of membership is, unless you'd like to share that, but I imagine that it's an investment well worth making.
Absolutely. And it is tiered as well for size of the business.
Okay.
There's so many payment arrangements right down to monthly as well. It is a membership to an industry body, which is a tax deduction and all of those kind of things. So as far as the price, you would definitely get some value from it. And that's where we try and do the instant value. So as soon as a member comes on board, we say, hey, activate your membership. It's no good just paying it. You need to activate it. So we say, come and do a workplace relations review, a safety audit that we provide free of charge as well to members that come on board, your FPOS review and your energy review, just to see if we can save you some money. And we've also got an exciting new launch with Bunnings as a corporate partner, which was just launched in the last couple of weeks through their Power Pass application as well, and which so I'm sure will be popular.
Yeah, no doubt. And that presumably is like discounts on tools and whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. That will be popular.
Yes.
You mentioned working with an organisation like Capricorn, which I know, which is also a membership organisation of sorts, is it not? Is. Yeah. So you don't work independently of everybody else. MTAQ has relationships with other organisations across the state and nationally.
Absolutely, because I think if we're representing on an issue or if we have a position, it would be highly unusual that someone else would have a different position, especially for the same industry. It doesn't mean that we don't have to sometimes balance our industries because we have 11 different sectors, whereas most of the other industry representative groups only have one. So Ada has new car dealers or someone has aftermarket. So sometimes there is a balance, but that's been very minimal in my time that they would have opposing views.
Yeah, okay. Now you've been you've been in senior roles with MTA Queensland for quite some time now. I'm not quite sure how long. And
22 years, not that I'm counting.
No, I was going to say. So in that time, I imagine that many a challenge has come across your desk that you've raised your eyebrows and thought, "Gosh, how are we going to tackle that?" Are there any that really stand out and like real successes that MTAQ has helped industry sort of conquer?
A lot of them are ongoing, might I say, even after all this time. But probably the biggest wins to me are ones we can engage members on. And 7-day trading was a great example of that, where our own dealer groups were out meeting with their local members and really engaging on that policy position that they didn't want it to come in. And probably a long, long time ago was shopper dockets with service stations, which really hit independent retail agents hard when the shopper docket discounts went up to some 20 cents a litre off fuel.
Right.
And it was a big impact on the independent market. And again, we got that real engagement where everyone started talking about it and talking to their local members and, making a real position from it. So it's great for me when industry get on board. As far as others, there are so many that are ongoing, Jonathan. It takes a long time to get a win on policy. We get some refinements, but it does take a long time. 3-month registration is another recent example where everyone was really engaged. So 3-month registration came in for dealers over COVID, but then they wound it back as a COVID measure. And we said it would be great for dealers to continue to access 3-month registration options, just like we all can on our private cars, for renewals and new registrations. And that's something that we had a win on as well. But I think that engagement piece, it's really great to me when industry gets involved, when it's not just us going and speaking to government or putting positions forward or in the media. I think they're the wins that I would probably remember the most. But we're working on a lot of others continuously. I mean, the written off vehicle review, I think, is in its 15th year, and I've been here for all of them. Safety certificates was here when I first started as well. I think Anna Bligh was the transport minister or something for the reason. But that maybe Anastasia Palaszczuk was. But, a lot of it is long-standing. It does take time, but we do work very closely with government and have good relationships with government as well.
Yeah. And in recent years, we've had the electrification come through and things like ADAS, which we talk about a lot. And I suppose these are bringing up, the NVES scheme that has kicked off, all the ADR changes, all these things. I suppose members are talking about those issues constantly to you.
Absolutely. And whether with electrification, whether they want to progress their business with it, whether they say we're not going to enter that market, whether they say we're at the stage of exiting this market completely in our business, that's our role to say, okay, how can we help you do whatever your choice is? It's not that everyone will move one way or the other, but I think our role is to assist them in whatever choice they make. ADAS is a big one. You know, it impacts things like the written off vehicle review, for example, because you can no longer fix a modern motor car in your back garage. Once you could. But certainly with all of these things on the car, you can't. And that's a big part of having that quality of repair piece in the written off vehicle review scheme as well.
Yeah. So back to the electrification bit, as you mentioned there, that some members may be thinking, that's not for me, and maybe they may even move out of the industry and move on to other things, whatever they may do. But for those that want to engage and move into that side of MTAQ are offering like business help or ways that they to help them navigate into that space?
Absolutely. So we did our electric vehicle workshop series just to say what might be required, things that you need to consider, you know, whether it's space, tooling or skills. We obviously do training in that environment as well. And at the moment we're working on, you know, a form of accreditation for electric vehicle skills in our industry. That's around the government thinking it might be a good idea for electricians to service, well, not service motor vehicles, but to have a part to play in that. And for anyone who's broken down on the side of the road, I don't think you'd be calling an electrician to fix your car and expecting it to move very quickly. So it's around that, saying, you know, it's right, it is dangerous, it's still voltage. What can we do to put in place so everyone has a level of comfort for their staff, for their business and for the people driving electric vehicles, just to make that a safer space as well.
Yeah, and I recall there's something on the cards, EV ready.
Correct.
Could you just explain what that is?
So that's around what skills you might need, what your workshop needs to look like from a health and safety perspective or even from equipment, and being able to hand on heart say, I have all of these things in place and I'm EV ready. And it's actually going to be a brand in market that consumers can identify with, if you have an electric vehicle, you can say, that person's equipped to deal with this vehicle and everything that comes along with it.
Yeah, so there's a consumer side to that where consumer can say, right, I've heard of this EV ready. I want to see who's offering it in my area and somewhere I can go and find that person.
And I think that will be the biggest thing. I mean, dealers have a lot of OEM training around electric vehicles, but the independent market doesn't necessarily. So I think for a consumer to be able to understand what's required to actually service or work on electric vehicles and say, you know, make that educated choice that someone actually has everything in place, you know, it won't affect their vehicle, there's a safety element and that they're equipped to do it, I think is a really important piece for electric vehicle owners as well.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, I'll talk about your background actually. Now you mentioned that you've been working with MTAQ for just over 20 years. So how did you get your start in automotive and why automotive? What's the journey that you've traveled on to go from, I don't know, high school, college, whatever, through to where you are today?
So automotive was a completely accidental choice for me. So I started off in dealerships through what they call stock control or admin. So ordering cars in for customers, making sure that they have enough stock, things like that. I did that for a little while and then I moved into finance and insurance. So helping customers in dealerships secure finance to buy a new vehicle. And then into fleet sales. So that's kind of my journey through dealerships, a little bit of a mix in everything. But once I moved outside of dealerships, I find dealerships and a lot of things in automotive, you say, oh, I need to make a move. This is getting a bit stale for me. But then when you move into the same roles, only the name or the kind of car changes, and then you're looking for your next challenge. And so I moved into the leasing space. So corporate leasing, novated and operating leases, novated leases. So it was probably just at the time maybe a bit of a mining boom. So I spent a lot of time in mining communities through Moranbah and Blackwater and all different places with the coal mining to explained to them how they could effectively salary package vehicles
Right.
through their wages. I spent a long time doing that as well. That's where I came from directly before MTAQ. But it's funny, you talk about history and what's changed in automotive. I recall quotes coming through in that time for, Fords, Holdens, different mainstream vehicles. But we had some clients who didn't keep their cars for a very long period of time, so 12-month leases. It got to the point where they could have a fully maintained vehicle to drive around in for $20 a month because of the value at the end of the lease and because they only kept it for such a short period. Now, that will probably never happen again. We probably even saw some negatives, if I'm honest, but didn't really think it was fair that we would be paying money for them to have a car. But yeah, that's something that you will never, ever see again. But it was a really interesting space for me. And certainly off the back of that, mining the novated lease was very, very popular. A lot of V8 SS Commodore Utes driving around in mining communities in the car parks when you pulled in, that's for sure.
I'm sure.
And I was still working for a leasing company when the role came up at MTAQ. Mm-hmm. And when I say the role, I started on the road with MTAQ as what is now my area managers. So that's where I started here, looking after what we call traditionally our sales sectors. So new cars, used cars, motorcycles, farm machinery. Mm-hmm. That was actually something I was familiar with. So that was okay. I did that for a little while, and then I was appointed general manager of the sales side of the business only. So we had kind of a duplication. We had 2 general managers and a team, and part of them was sales, which is all of those traditionally that I'd been involved in. The other side was service, which was completely foreign to me. So it was, our service stations and mechanics and panel beaters and engine reconditioners. So the general manager of service left, and goodness knows why, or if they were even of sound mind, they thought it might be a good idea to appoint me across sales and service as general manager. That was a steep learning curve for me,
Sure.
I have to say. I'm the least technical person that I know. I'm probably the least technical person that anyone knows. So to put me in that role, I was surviving, but probably not thriving. In the early piece of it. I found the knowledge difficult to get across, especially in the paint and panel or collision space, with insurance companies and funny times, funny money, and the way they quoted vehicles and all of those kind of things was just so foreign to me. Yeah. I was lucky enough to have or build some good connections. And I have to say my knowledge of industry, and most people do know Ben Chesterfield, my knowledge of that industry really took off when Ben came to work for me as an area manager. He was the person who was able to explain it to me and made me feel comfortable that sometimes it doesn't make sense and it's not about understanding it, it's just about knowing it, that this is the system and this is how it works. So I guess that changed and I did move into that thrive mode a little bit more in the service industries, but definitely a steep learning curve for me. And from a confidence perspective, just trying to represent them when I didn't quite understand, I did find really challenging. And that's probably the most challenging part of my life here at MTAQ was that initially that services sector. I still believe that knowledge is power.
Yes.
So once I started to get my head around it, I didn't have that space where I had to kind of earn that respect all the time in every conversation that I entered into. I just love the services sector of automotive now as something that I wasn't familiar with before.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's really interesting hearing you talk about that because I do want to talk about the fact that you are a woman in a male-dominated, well, traditionally most people still view it as such industry. Yeah. You recently won the Industry Supplier Representative Award at the Women in Collision Awards. Now, according to the website of the event's organizer, which I think is Patent Panel,
yes,
you were nominated and won, at least in part because you, quote, led the instigation of the Auto Women Network, which is now providing for women across our industry to network, share ideas and support each other, end quote. How did it feel to be nominated for an award like this, and taking into account what you've said about your past where you're in sales and you had to learn about the more technical aspects of the role, how did it feel to be nominated and to win an award for Women in Collision?
completely surprising, but very exciting. I was excited just to be nominated. When I was nominated, I went, this is it. This is fantastic, let alone to make the finalist list and then actually win the award. I felt a lot of emotions going through that journey. But yeah, like you said, absolutely linked to collision, an industry that I have grown very close to, and from something that I thought I'm never going to understand this. And it's funny when you talk about women in industry in particular. When I was appointed general manager even of sales, it made the Courier Mail twice in a week.
Is that
just
true?
To be a female being appointed at a high level position in automotive, which when you look back is quite astounding, really. And then I was made deputy CEO and no one called. So yeah, we have come a long way, really.
Yeah.
So the article that they wrote was entitled "Women at the Helm," and they spoke about how women are making their way into all these different spaces and kind of a line along, and lo and behold, they're even getting into the motor trades. So it was very interesting, and that was when I was appointed general manager.
Right. So that's
I'm going to say 2007, maybe 2006.
Gosh, that is mind-blowing, isn't it? That should, yeah, well, as you say, things have come a long way. So it came as a surprise to you to win. But
absolutely.
When we went through the list of nominees and finalists and in fact winners, MTA Queensland was quite prominent, wasn't it?
Yes.
So we have Anne McClure from McClure Refinishing in Townsville, also a winner, and Lily Welsh, who's an apprentice from Advanced Auto Repair Centre in Brisbane. They also won. I'm not certain of the categories. Actually, now I'm looking, but they were also winners. So that must be tremendously pleasing. As Deputy CEO of MTAQ, you must look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's a win.
And we had even more in the finalist list from Queensland as well. And Anne was one of our nominees for Women in Industry Award, one of our finalists last year. And Lily was our November Apprentice of the Month. So she'll be up for Apprentice of the Year this year. But it was really pleasing to see. It was one of the first things I noticed when the list came out, even for the finalist list. It was really pleasing that so many women that are linked to MTAQ were actually finalists as well.
Yeah. So now we have to go back a bit and talk about the Auto Women connection here, which was very prominent in, I'm guessing that your win. So explain Auto Women to us. What is it? How did it come about? And I'm guessing we know the answer, but why was it deemed a necessary thing to start?
So I'll start on how it came about. And it was funny because it wasn't to do with our industry. It was to do with some of our senior leadership team looking for a networking space that was a little bit uniquely automotive and who we could connect with to build our networks and go and speak to people involved in automotive. And there kind of wasn't anything. Sam runs Women in Collision, which is specifically for collision and does a great job. But there was nothing really that was all-encompassing of automotive. So back in 2021, we kind of went, this really isn't good enough. Let's build something and see where that takes us. So it started as that, but then we started to get more and more people looking for support and we couldn't direct them anywhere. And we said that wasn't good enough either. So that's essentially how it started. We say it is, what we want to see as the go-to support and networking space for women in automotive. It offers so many opportunities. We've put so many women through the scholarship opportunities. So they come up 4 times a year over twice a year over 2 categories. The first one is executive ready. So it's all about, that whole people who might be in middle level management wanting to propel themselves into those executive positions. So it's around mindset, behaviour and thinking at executive level. Now, these are all online, so it's available to anyone in Queensland, but they're good value. That course is valued at around $10,000 for people that are fortunate enough to be nominated and ultimately succeed. And our leading edge is always exciting because it's for our early starters. And we've had some amazing people go through that program. And it's all about just building their confidence and communication skills. I think they run for 6 months and 9 months each program.
Right.
But the scholarships are part of Auto Women. It's not linked to MTAQ membership. It's linked to Women in Industry. And then we run social and online events. Our online Connect events can attract about 70 women on their lunchtime online with a guest speaker, and just talking about all different things happening in the industry or different things that we have coming up. And then our Facebook group is really popular as well.
Right. And is there a mentorship sort of element to it as well?
Yep. So when we started in the mentoring space,
Yeah.
it seemed a lot of different people had a lot of different views about what mentoring was, or what if they had the skills to actually put it in place. And I'm quite comfortable and happy in the mentor space for anyone that makes contact with me or for any staff as well. But we didn't find that with everyone. So that part of it hasn't progressed as much as we hoped it would. We have a lot of what we would call really keen ambassadors and believe in the cause. They're true believers and they really want to see this work and they think that it's so important. But the other thing that we have had come on board is through our initiatives team, we've got the actual one-on-one mentoring for first and second year apprenticeships it started out as, but now it's from school-based right through to fourth year, and they're having some amazing interest and sign up in that program. So that's more the mentoring space that we're focusing on at the moment. As we kind of have a look at, do we need to bring different mentors or different contacts on? Like it could be that someone wants professional advice. We need someone to be able to give them that in that space. It could be that someone wants something else. So that mentor space has been a little bit difficult for us, but we're certainly all keen to talk to anyone that wants to make contact with us about absolutely anything.
Okay, so I'll just segue out of Auto Women slightly there. So MTAQ offers other women-focused initiatives and projects as well.
Even that is separate to us. So the mentoring program for apprentices is a government-funded program.
Right.
So it's available to any apprentices in industry, not just our members, not just our apprentices that we train. It's available to absolutely anyone. It's a partnership with Busy Sisters as well.
Yes.
And it is around one-on-one mentoring. So we have Chelsea Lawson, a mentor that's based on staff and is very popular and well-known in industry as well. But yeah, that program, it has engaged a lot of people very early on. It's been really successful.
Yeah. Okay, back to the Auto Women. So, who can join? Is it? It's not membership. You just sort of.
It's not membership.
How does it work?
So most people join either through LinkedIn or through our Facebook group.
Right.
That's essentially the two ways on how you come into us, unless you've called in. Wanting more information on it, or you've seen us at an event. So we speak to a lot of ladies at events to come on board as well. We've obviously got our Auto Women t-shirts. We've got all of these great things. But yeah, it's absolutely open to anyone in automotive. And our challenge for that has been, some people think it's just for tradies. Some people think it's just for executives or dealer principal level or all of those things.
Yeah.
It's not. It's for anyone, from administration to our tradies to apprentices. It's any woman working in the automotive industry that can be part of Auto Women.
Okay, so if you're a first-year apprentice, 18 years old, and you looking for support, you could go to Auto Women and join up and talk to someone like yourself.
Absolutely. So they can come through us for Auto Women, and they can also have that advantage at the moment while the program's open for the one-on-one mentoring as well. So they can come to us in a group format or talk to any of us one-on-one that are involved and also get that extra support. So it's really nice at the moment to have that well-rounded support for our apprentices in industry, our female apprentices.
So it sounds like it's been running for three or four years now, Auto Women. So what's the momentum been? Is it growing? Is it growing in popularity? And
it is growing, and we can tell that by our events. So when we started off, we held one event in Brisbane. Now that's always a big mistake, but I never learned from it because I always get phone calls from our regional people.
Of course.
And I'm sure they're thinking, you keep making this mistake, and I apologise for that. So what we did is we just had that one in Brisbane, but now we go into all the regions. We got some feedback around the format and said what women really want is an opportunity to engage with other women, maybe in their region, so they can build out their own networks. So we made it a lot more social. So we we called it Auto Women Social for that reason. So it really is that casual environment. It's not always a guest speaker, but it's an opportunity for everyone to connect after we tell them a little bit about the program. Anyone can get up and speak about anything, but it's that social element, because it could be that, someone from administration in a new car dealership had no idea that they would have a personal connection when they met someone with a collision administration person. So it really is about building those.
Yeah.
So I think last year we did, we did Gladstone, Townsville, Cairns, Mackay. This year we hope to do all of those again and add on Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and Fraser Coast as well. So towards either Bundy, Hervey Bay, or Maryborough, as well as keep our signature event. So our big event is still Brisbane, and we'd love to do a really big event in Brisbane, but I'm not going to give you any more information on that. But I promise when the time comes, I will give you some more information.
Okay. The establishment of something like Auto Women, and frankly, the fact that you mentioned earlier that it was 2007 and your appointment as general I forget the position that you appointed to, but that was
General Manager Sales.
Thank you.
And I think it might have been a little bit before that, because now that I'm thinking about the timeline, we had a new CEO in 2006 and I was already in that position. But it wouldn't be 10 years before, because I only started in 2003. So if you think about it in that context, I started in 2003. So it would have been a couple of years in.
Yeah.
And then I was appointed to that GM sales side.
Right. So that appointment, that made the pages of the Courier Mail. That was a news story, which is astonishing. This century, that should happen. But it does bring up something that also the fact that Auto Women has been established and is a popular project. But difficult question, really. But as you have worked your way through the automotive industry, through all those steps that you were talking about, were there occasions where you yourself met that sort of, hang on, what's this woman doing in this? I don't want to talk to, do you know, that sort of misogynistic sort of barrier? Was that something that you encountered?
Probably less so for me along the way.
Yeah.
I think in the services side, they thought it a lot. Only the minority said it, but I'm sure they thought it a lot, and rightfully so. That wasn't my background, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge around that.
Okay.
Funnily enough, I still get it with the general public. So when we have members of the public call in on something and it's being escalated,
yes,
I'm usually met with, hi, love. They said they were going to put me through to the manager or the deputy CEO, which I always find really interesting. And I have a little giggle and say, that'd be me. How can I help? But it's quite funny that industry has, I think, moved past that to a large degree. When you see how many women are in automotive, there are a lot of women in automotive in all different roles.
Sure.
From starting out right through to dealer principals in dealerships and managing very large organisations. But yeah, it is quite funny to be met with that when something is escalated.
Gosh, that is mind-boggling. Oh dear. So in general, then, things from your point of view, you think things are better now for women wanting to get into the industry and get a start and move on and move upwards than they've ever been. So things have improved immeasurably. Or
I think the automotive industry, not just for women, it's a tough industry, right?
Yeah,
I've seen this industry break some very strong people in different ways, and not necessarily just females.
Yeah.
It is a hard industry in a lot of context. And I accept that although my journey in automotive has been overall positive, I'm a different person as well to some people out there. And I also accept it hasn't been everyone's journey. Like, I've heard some horror stories about women trying to enter automotive industry or their experience with automotive industry, which is difficult because they do play like an essential role in automotive. They have a different way with customers and all those things, and a lot of businesses have recognised that. But I think for the people that are having difficult times, Auto Women is definitely the space for that, but it certainly hasn't been my overall experience.
Yeah.
Has there been days where I have experienced it? Yes.
Yes.
I mean, the hardest question I get asked and still continue to get asked is, what does it feel like being a woman in automotive? Because I kind of feel like if I thought about that all the time, I've already lost.
Yeah.
Like I try and stand on my own merits. I try and, say, well, this is who I am and this is my knowledge and this is my experience. And I think you found a little bit of a resurgence with that on boards and wanting to have more females on boards, but you need females on boards for the right reason, not to say we need females on boards. Would you be willing to come on? So I think that has kind of had a little bit of a resurgence as well, where it does beg that question. I don't know why you're asking me what it's like to be a woman in automotive.
Sorry I asked.
But, no, not in that way, but that it. I think it's a go-to, and probably I don't know how you fix that front part. Like why is it that that's the go-to question about women in automotive? I know why it's there. I just don't know where we progress, that one day it's not, and it probably won't be in my time here, although I have been here a long time and don't plan to be going anywhere. But yeah, I find it interesting. I don't find it offensive or that it shouldn't happen. I just continue to find it interesting, if that makes sense, because I usually don't think about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's not unusual for me to be the only female in the room, and even on our board for a very long time, other than Kathy presenting her financials when she came in, it's not been unusual for me to be the only female in the room.
Yeah.
And to me, some days that's considered a fair fight. So, yeah, it is really interesting that continues to be the case, whether no matter where you walk into in automotive, it would be unusual that you would have a balance of females there, and it would be highly usual that you were well and truly outnumbered as far as the people in the room. But I think that's growing and changing as well. I mean, we've got 2 female board members now. We've got more women on our committees than we've ever had in the history of this organisation, which is really pleasing to see as well.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of women putting themselves forward, and I think that's something that hasn't happened. Even with the awards, going back to talk about the awards, even with that, and it's quite funny, and I did say it when I was on stage as the winner. I said, I bang on about this all the time. Like, this is the moment that I'm talking about where I say women should put themselves forward for these awards. You're doing some amazing things, and if you're not going to put yourself forward, then I hope that you find someone that will put you forward for an award, because it's just so important. And I did say, I wasn't really talking about me, but thanks for listening, and I feel very validated. So it was really interesting.
Okay, I mean, I just from a personal point of view, if you'll indulge me just for a moment, when I do talk to a lot of apprentices, especially, and a number of them are young women, and I have noticed myself that over the years, the question of what's it like being a young woman in a workshop, that question has fallen away. It's not becoming something that needs to be asked so much anymore. It used to be something that would be not the first thing I'd ask, but it'd be there.
But I think also because it was different, because there wasn't a lot of females in these roles. So I think the question will be asked less through attrition, because you will have more and more females that it's not a talking point. It's not unusual. It's just
norm.
part of the fabric of the automotive industry, which is what I want to see.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. All right. Well, future plans for Auto Women. What can members and what can we expect to see?
We'll be in more places than ever, I can tell you that, because I have seen the schedule. The Connect events, we'll host more of those as well. So that's our online lunchtime events that I was talking about.
Yep.
But we're going to try and push the boundaries, so to speak, to make Auto Women more inclusive outside of what we already do. So that will be some of our breaking news, probably in the next month or so. Okay,
well, look forward to hearing about that. And then so MTA Queensland itself, look, the industry is in mega upheaval. I guess it's never been a busier time for yourself, Rod, the executive team, who've got to analyse whether how things are moving and what to offer members. I suppose that's as busy as it's ever been for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the key to our success is what we can offer.
Yeah.
But also, even when it's in disarray, I think this industry has an uncanny ability to adapt. Like, you look at all the changes that they've already gone through in many different ways, and they're able to pivot and adapt really quickly to that, whether it's COVID. And, we were lucky enough to be considered an essential industry at that time, which did really help our industry. And we saw a lot of positive change from that. And I often make the comment saying, who would have thought that motor mechanic's job would be safer than an airline pilot, over that period. It was very, very interesting. But I think this particular industry, it really does have an uncanny way to adapt to anything that is, whether it's, legislative change, whether it's something to do with franchise, whether it's, new consumer law, which is ongoing as a piece of legislation. I think all of those things, you watch it and it just continues to get stronger and stronger. Brilliant.
All right. Well, that does bring us to the end of our industry related questions, but I can't let you go with asking just a couple of questions here. I ask all my guests. So, what car do you use what's your daily driver car? And if money were no object, what car would you own?
So my daily drive is a Lexus NX 350, so small SUV. It's the second one I've had. I absolutely love it. But nice. This time I have gone a hybrid. So first time for me in a hybrid. Right. I can't get used to how quiet it is. In fact, I've been that person that turns it on and thinks it's not running and turns it off and then gets confused with where I'm at. But it is a really nice car. The quietness, I think, the thing I've had to get used to most is when you're driving and people suddenly just start walking in front of you because they don't hear the car coming. It really does happen, which I guess is why they're looking at some things around sounds on electric vehicles. But it is real. It is very, very quiet, but I absolutely love it. Right. As far as if money was no object, it'd be anything under the Koenigsegg mark.
Right.
Now, I'm not fussy on the model only because it's not really a car for me. I'm looking for a little bit of popularity at home, and I think that might tick the boxes.
Okay.
And I'm probably not a car person, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on your
channel.
Interview, Jonathan,
that's fine.
Or if you're going to cut it out. And it's not that I'm not a car person. I'm absolutely an industry person.
Right.
I'm just not kind of tied to a car fascination.
So you're not, if I were to say Ford or Holden, you would be completely non-committal. Yeah.
And I think it would be very dangerous for me to be so in my role. I think I'll add that to my don't discuss football, politics or Ford or Holden list.
All right, that's brilliant. Well, look, Kellie, thank you so much for joining us on the Motoring Chronicles. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Jonathan. Thank you.